From Australia, this is the Wireless Institute of Australia with the weekly news service. This broadcast is in text, audio and video and is accessed on wia.org.au.
Hi, it's Graham, VK4BB with the national news for week commencing July 31, 2022 from your WIA. This week, a special word to those it may concern in VK6. A reminder for our female contesters, immediate past president of your WIA on the art of QSLing, and sad news from our current WIA president.
Many thanks, Graham, and greeting to all listeners of the WIA broadcast this week. This is WA President and Director Scott Williams, VK3KJ. On behalf of the WA Board of Directors, this week it's with great sadness that we report the very sad passing of John Martin, VK3KM. After a long and courageous battle with ill health, John became a silent key last Saturday, the 23rd of July. Given John's enormous contribution to the WIA and the broader amateur radio community, we believed a special fitting tribute was warranted on this week's broadcast. A little background on John. In the early 1970s, with the advent of amateur satellites and the rapid growth of VHF and UHF repeaters, and the growth of VHF and UHF in general, this drove the WIA to establish a National Technical Advisory Committee. John became involved in this committee in 1973, producing a report on the draft 70cm band plan published in Amateur Radio magazine in October of 1974. He served in several roles until a Federal Technical Advisory Committee was established around 1990 to 1991. He was congratulated for a decade's service in 2001 by Jim Linton, VK3PC, now Silent Key, then the Victorian Division President. John held three call signs throughout his life: VK3ZJC from 1967 when he first became licensed, VK3KWA from 1993, and then VK3KM from 2005. John became the VHF-UHF Field Day Coordinator in the early 1980s, publishing and supporting national VHF-UHF Field Days, developing from 1 to 3 events over 1 year. John was active on packet radio from the early days, as well as chasing terrestrial DX on the 23cm band, working tropospheric scatter and aircraft scatter. John continued to serve on the Technical Advisory Committee throughout his past years of ill health. The WIA wish to formally acknowledge the enormous contribution John Martin has made to the amateur radio community, and we pass on our sincere condolences to John's family and friends through this difficult time. Rest in peace, John Martin, VK3KM, now Silent Key. Now on to some brighter news. We'd like to congratulate fellow board member and director Stephen Green, VK2TSG, who this week was announced the Citizen of the Year for the Penrith City Council in New South Wales. The awards recognise and celebrate residents who go above and beyond, who dedicate their time to making the city of Penrith a great place to live. Stephen was in particular recognised for his tremendous amount of volunteer work within the community. Very worthy of mentioning is the time Stephen devotes to providing pastoral care and chaplaincy to nursing home residents and mental health patients in hospitals, as well as peer support to emergency personnel. Stephen is also on call to the New South Wales Police when a support person is needed for local use and those with disabilities. Our congratulations once again go to Stephen Green for being the recipient of this award and for his work within the community. Well done, Stephen. Finally, the new Foundation Manual is in print and we will hope to have stock sometime next week. Thank you for your patience, and for those many people waiting, the wait will be worthwhile as it's been significantly upgraded. That's it for me this week. I look forward to talking to you on air soon. Best regards, Scott, VK3KJ.
This is Greg, VK2GPK, with this week's board comment. One of the benefits that the Wireless Institute provides its members is the QSL Bureau service. The WI QSL Bureau processes many thousands of both inbound and outbound QSL cards each month and has done so for many decades. It is important to recognise that the WI QSL Bureau operates with the collaboration and greatly appreciated assistance of both West Lakes Amateur Radio Club and Amateur Radio Victoria. My choice of QSL cards as a topic for this broadcast stems from a recent discussion with a radio amateur colleague who raised the issue of the large number of non-deliverable QSL cards within Australia. Whilst most radio amateurs certainly know what a QSL card is, those recently licensed or prospective radio amateurs and shortwave listeners may not. A QSL card is a written confirmation of either a two-way radio communication between two transmitting stations or a one-way reception of a signal from an AM, FM, television or shortwave broadcasting station. A typical QSL card is the same size and made from the same material as a typical postcard. Whilst there is no official standard size for the card, the de facto standard is 140mm by 90mm. A QSL card derives its name from the Q code term QSL. More recently, electronic alternatives to physical cards have evolved, such as eQSL. These, for many, do not replace the tangible and historical appeal of real QSL cards, particularly those with amazing artwork. So what is the issue with non-deliverable QSL cards I mentioned in the preamble? Well, the disturbing fact is that typically up to 80% of inbound QSL cards each month are filed WPB, i.e. they end up in the waste bin, thousands of cards each month in the bin. Why? It's very simple. Because they are for Australian radio amateurs who, for whatever reason, are not members of the WIA. And yet membership of the WIA costs less than $2 a week, less than half the cost of a single cup of coffee at a cafe. Whilst bureau processing is carried out by a dedicated team of unpaid volunteers, postage costs today are non-trivial, and it is unreasonable that such costs for non-members should be subsidised by loyal WIA members. So if you aren't yet a WIA member or have let your membership lapse, then the best way to avoid that niggling fear of missing out is by heading to the WIA website, wia.org.au. Finally, as you may be aware if you're involved in the running of training courses for the Foundation licence, the WIA has now totally exhausted supplies of the current WIA Foundation Manual 3rd edition. On average, we sell just under 1,000 a year of these books. But fear not, a new revised 4th edition is at the printers now and will become available in a few weeks. Pre-orders will be accepted by the National Office. The WIA member or WIA affiliated club price for this manual is $25 plus shipping. It is with some irony to note that the size of the print run for the 3rd edition was strongly criticised at the time in 2016-2017 as being excessive by a vocal few who shall not be named. 73, this is Greg, VK2, GPK.
This is the home service of the Wireless Institute of Australia through VK1WIA. Now, international news with Jason, VK2LAW.
Hello. Good news from Region 1, a non-profit organisation in Spain known for providing grants for projects involving the arts and sport, has made an unusual gift in the support of an amateur radio satellite project. The group, known as the Salvatore 009 Association, is providing funds to help cover development costs in the launch of the satellite in early 2023. The satellite is known as URESat-1, and it's an initiative of Spain's National Amateur Radio Society. The project is being managed by AMSAT EA with support from businesses involved in the space industry and a number of university students. We've made mention of its payload in previous editions of this, the WIA National News, and again according to a post on the AMSAT UK website, the satellite is likely to have an FM voice repeater, support for FSK communications, and an SSDV-capable camera. It's also supposed to carry a project that will permit hams to play chess against the satellite's onboard computer using FSK frames. Road traffic messages in APRS map service. Norway's NRRL, their national ham society, reports the Norwegian Public Roads Administration information on road closures, roadworks and accidents is being made available through the NRRL's amateur radio APRS map service. The Norwegian Public Roads Administration has an extensive system for, amongst other things, road messages. This is information about road closures, accidents and roadworks as well. This is open data that's published in perhaps a slightly difficult format, DATEX. Now it's fully integrated this into NRRL's map service. France's National Frequency Agency, ANFR, has announced the amateur radio 144 and 430 MHz bands will be used for PMR voice comms, 1240 MHz for PMSE, and 2.3 GHz for video links during the 2024 Olympic and Paralympic Games. The National Frequency Agency is in charge of drawing up the frequency plan and allocating frequencies for the Games. These frequencies will be made available for the organising committee of the Paris 2024 Olympic Games during the period from 1 month before the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games to 1 week after the closing ceremony of the Paralympic Games. In order for them to be usable in good conditions, it seems essential that in the vicinity of the sites, their use by radio amateurs is moderated during this period. In news from Region 2, ARRL program for school teachers. Crescent News, Defiance, Ohio, reports a local teacher was selected to attend the Amateur Radio Relay League HQ to participate in the Teachers Institute on Wireless Technology, TI. This professional development opportunity for educators is a technology-focused week-long course on electronics and radio communications. It works well for STEM teachers looking to update their knowledge and collaborate with colleagues from around the world. All expenses are paid by ARRL, and participants are given a significant package of supplies and books worth hundreds of dollars to use in their classrooms. To commemorate its 40th anniversary, the Fair Lawn Amateur Radio Club will take the lead in hosting the special event station Whiskey to India, celebrating the Intrepid Sea and Air and Space Museum on Tuesday, August 2nd at various locations within the immediate New York City area. Primary bands will be 20 and 40 metres SSB and CW. The Intrepid Museum, an American military and maritime history museum, opened to the public in 1982. Today, 40 years later, Intrepid, now a National Historic Landmark, serves as the centrepiece of the entire museum complex. The museum showcases the aircraft carrier USS Intrepid, the cruise missile submarine USS Growler, a Concorde SST, a Lockheed A-12 supersonic reconnaissance plane, and the NASA Space Shuttle Enterprise. The Intrepid served the US Navy for over 3 decades and played a role in World War II, the Cold War, the US space program, and the Vietnam War. The end of paper logs in Brazil. Labre, the National Amateur Radio Society of Brazil, has voiced its concerns about some of the proposals for new regulations affecting amateur radio, published by Anatel, Brazil's telecoms regulator. In return for dropping the requirement for the CW exam for the higher licence classes, Anatel proposed to mandate the use of LOTW, the ARRL's logbook of the world, together with participation in courses and amateur radio activities as proof of proficiency. Visiting or immigrating foreign hams would benefit from such changes when applying with a licence issued in a country without CW requirements for HF. However, Labre contends that Anatel cannot rely on a foreign organisation effectively outsourcing one of its licensing functions. Proof of experience through electronically documented two-way contacts also ignores radio hams who do not make DX contacts or do not participate in contests, but instead dedicate themselves to equally legitimate areas within the ham radio community, such as ham radio in education, emergency support and experimentation. For VK1 WIA National News, in Sydney, I'm Jason, VK2LAW.
Across Australia from VK1 WIA, you're tuned to the WIA National News Service in the ACT region. It can be heard on our Mount Janini repeaters, 146950, 438050 at 0900 local time every Sunday. I'm Amanda, VK1 Whiskey X-Ray.
Now, operational news with Felix, VK4 FUQ.
Hello there. Now, contest-wise 2022, RSGB IOTA contest is this weekend, July 30, 31, and Bruce will have some history on this event shortly here on WIA National News. WIA RD or Remembrance Day contest, Saturday, Sunday, August 13, 14. Alara contest, August 27, 28, and today I'm pleased to introduce Maria, VK5MAZ, contest manager for Alara.
The 42nd Alara contest will be held on the last weekend of August, from Saturday the 27th to Sunday the 28th. Starting time is 0600 UTC, finishing 24 hours later at 0559 UTC. The Alara contest is a lot of fun and open to all YLs and OMs. Although we are slightly competitive, we do help each other by giving out numbers and spotting each other on Facebook. Some of the girls even practice CW together in the months before the contest. We look forward to chatting with those we don't usually meet on air. All YLs and OMs are invited to take part, and it is hoped that YLs in particular will enjoy this friendly contest. It is not necessarily about making the highest score, but to enjoy a chat with those that we don't usually meet on air. We would also love to hear some young and new YLs joining in this year, as well as scouts and girl guides. Some of the committee will be handing out numbers on HF and Echolink during the contest. The contest rules have now been uploaded to the Alara contest page. For those who don't have Facebook and would like a copy of the rules, please email alaracontest@wia.org.au. 73 for now, Maria, VK5MAZ.
Alan, VK4SN, joins us now with some great and on-time news.
Hi, this is Alan, VK4 Sierra November, with the Trans-Tasman contest results. 94 logs were submitted out of approximately 350 calls on air. Propagation was favourable and contacts were plentiful. Results are as follows. For single operator high power, Victor Juliet 4 Kilo, operator VK4 Tango Sierra with 10,204 points. Category single operator low power was won by VK5 Papa Alpha Sierra with 7,526 points. Single operator QRP was won by VK7 Victor Hotel with 1,940 points. Multi-operator single transmitter was won by VK3 Kilo Kilo with 5,352 points. And multi-operator multi-transmitter was won by Victor Lima 4 Romeo with 8,082 points. Thank you to all who submitted logs and participated. While I have the microphone, the Remembrance Day contest is in 2 weeks' time. Saturday the 13th at 0300 Zulu is kick-off time, running until 0300 on Sunday. Categories are single operator QRP, multi-1 and multi-multi, using phone, CW or RIDI, or mixed mode. Contacts can be reworked after 3 hours have elapsed. There are no blocks in the RD, just 3 hours between the same contact. If you're in it to win, then staying up for triple points between 1am and 6am your local time is the go. VKCL Logger and M1MM Logger are preferred logging software. Make sure you're running version 4.15 for VKCL Logger. And remember to send in your log within 2 weeks after the contest. Best 73s, this is Alan, Victor Kilo 4 Sierra November.
DX window and my 4 in play this week are Listen for a Foul, EA5XV, who hopes to be on the air from Panama as EA5XV/HB1, June 28th until September the 12th. In the world of DX, be listening on the HF bands for 8N650JP, the special call sign being used by the Japan Amateur Radio League's Okinawa branch. The call sign 8N650JP is active through to the 30th of September. Jan Mayan, JX. LB4MI is QRV as JX/LB4MI until early October. Activities in his spare time on 20 and 17 metres using SSB. Indonesia. 7B2C, 7B2E, 7B2T, 7B2H and 7B2O are QRV until end of October to celebrate the Javanese Hindu Siddhu temple that was built in 1475. Activities on 80, 40, 20, 15 and 10 metres using SSB and FT8. QSL via operator's instructions. For VK1 WIA National News, I'm Felix VK4FU Kiwiningham.
This is the home service of the Wireless Institute of Australia through VK1WIA. Now, special interest group news with Bruce, VK3FFF.
And a very good morning to you. Let the games begin. For the Commonwealth Games, where the opening ceremony was held Thursday last, the 28th Amateur Radio is on the podium. In addition to the HQ station GB22HQ, which is operating from the Birmingham NEC, the RSGB is activating 7 special event call signs. NEC, you say? NEC is the National Exhibition Centre, the UK's largest exhibition venue and one of Europe's leading event destinations. Now, these 7 special event stations, they are 1 each from the 4 UK home nations and 3 Crown dependencies. The call signs were activated from the 25th of July for 28 days, i.e. until August the 21st. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, ATV. Every pixel tells a story. The WIA News is on YouTube and ATV stations. Watch out though, a lot of us newsreaders and commentators have really got a face for radio. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, Final Frontier. FO29 has returned to full sunlight and the analogue transponder has been enabled. FO29 will remain in full sunlight until approximately April 14th, 2023, and the analogue transponder should remain active for the duration of the full sunlight period. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, IOTA. This weekend sees the running of the RSGB IOTA contest. So what is IOTA for our newbies? The RSGB IOTA contest is a major international event attracting thousands of participants from all over the world. In 1964, British shortwave listener Jeff Watts imagined that those who live in crowded cities would love to set up a station on a sunny beach among palm trees. Jeff realised that there were too many islands in the world to enumerate, so he grouped together islands, particularly the small ones. In the IOTA program, numbers are allocated to each group using a continental prefix. This idea then turned into the RSGB Islands on the Air Awards program, which recently celebrated its 50th anniversary. The basic IOTA award requires contacts with 100 islands and groups, including at least one from each continent. Now, as Felix often says during his operational news, listen and work. OC 139, Grant VK5GR, reports that he will once again be active as VK5KI from Kangaroo Island for the RSGB IOTA contest on now July 30th, 31st. OC 165, members of the Amateur Radio Club Sarawak will be active as 9M8RC from Setang Besar Island, OJ51BT, during the RSGB IOTA contest this weekend, July 30-31st. QSL via 9W8KIF. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, Radio Amateur Old Timers. So, let's check in for details with Clive.
Hello everyone, this is Clive, VK6 Charlie Sierra Whiskey, reminding you that tomorrow is the first Monday of the month, time for the Radio Amateurs Old Timers Club of Australia's August Bulletin to go to air. The main topics are the AGM, scheduled for September the 25th, a short item entitled Sun and Sunspots, some wireless news from 111 years ago, and an opinion on radiation and mobile phone towers. Everyone, RAOTC members and non-members alike, is most welcome to listen to the programme and to join in the callbacks afterwards. Full details of all transmissions can be found on the RAOTC website, raotc.org.au, or just Google RAOTC broadcasts. You can download the audio file at any time from today from the website. Members and friends of the RAOTC in Perth are reminded that the next lunchtime meeting at the Bayswater Hotel is on Tuesday, August the 9th. Everyone's welcome, and for more details, please email coordinator Phil VK6ZKO at pbcasper@bigpond.com. pbcasper@bigpond.com. 7-3 from Clive VK6CSW.
Once again, tune in tomorrow for the August RAOTC Bulletin. Enjoy the program and please join in the callbacks afterwards. Worldwide Special Interest Groups Rescue Radio. An expanded WinLink network will be built soon in Alabama, USA, to better serve healthcare and emergency response agencies throughout the state, with the helping of funding from Amateur Radio Digital Communications. The planned expansion is the project of the Healthcare Community Amateur Radio Club, KK4BSK, comprising hams who volunteer or are employed in health-related agencies and participate in drills, public events and real-time disasters. The purchase and installation of new fixed stations will fill the gaps that now exist in the WinLink network. And the amount of the grant? Just under 300,000 Australian dollars. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, YOTA, Youngsters on the Air. Joining us is Alec, VK2APC.
ARRL member volunteers will ensure amateur radio is well represented at the annual EAA Air Venture in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, as Jason, Victor Kilo 2 Lima Alpha Whiskey, told us last week in this bulletin. A highlight for we younger hams, lucky enough to attend Air Venture, is the ability to build and take home a radio receiver to listen to air traffic and other nearby transmissions from approximately 65 to 140 megahertz. The kit, designed by student engineer Levi Zima, Kilo November 4, Yankee Hotel Sierra, with additional support from his sister Kirsten Zima, Kilo Charlie 9, Romeo Whiskey Golf, has been an ARRL offering since 2021. It's great fun to be at Air Venture walking around with the radio kits we've built and tuning into the busy air traffic control tower throughout the event. Radio communications is a key part of learning about avionics. ARRL is grateful to EAA Air Venture for sponsoring the activity, which promises to introduce a lot of young people to radio. For VK1 WIA National News, I'm Alec, VK2 APC in Sydney. Now back over to you, Bruce.
Worldwide Special Interest Groups Software Development. VK7's REAST, REAST August presentation is all about accessible GD77 software. It will be given in person by the software developer Joe Stephen, VK7JS. And for those who don't know, Joe is totally blind. But instead of this holding him back, he has developed a reputation developing software for the vision impaired. Joe has developed many pieces of software, including the very popular JAWS screen reader software that enables blind people around the world to access computers, including reading web pages, interacting with spreadsheets and much more, using speech and braille feedback. Joe will take REAST visitors through this development and the features he has built into the accessible GD77 firmware. And it happens August the 3rd in the Queen's Domain Clubrooms from 7:30 p.m. I'm Bruce, VK3FFF in sunny Bendigo.
Now to the social scene and then we're out of here. In VK4, August 6, Redcliffe Club hold the radio display at Altronics, Virginia. That happens at 8:30 a.m, August 6. Redcliffe's car boot sale happens Saturday, August 20 at 9 a.m. This will be held at the Clubhouse, McFarlane Park, Klinger Road, Kippering. In VK5, it's the AREG car boot sale, September 10 at David Roche Park at Kilbourne. And back to VK4, Sunfest, Sunday, September 18, 10 a.m, Mountain Creek State School. Now till next we meet, I am Graham, VK4BB. Walk softly.
From Australia, this has been the Wireless Institute of Australia with the weekly news service. This broadcast is in text, audio and video and is accessed on wia.org.au.
Courtesy of Bevan, VK5 BD's ATV and YouTube channel, this has been WIA National News. We're back now, live and local, and your voice, your callbacks. And don't forget, tick like.
.3OTN, the official call sign of the Radio Amateurs Oldtimers Club of Australia, with the regular transmission of news and information for members and friends of the club. This broadcast is presented via several transmissions, most occurring on the first Monday of each month except January. Details of the times and frequencies of the relays of these broadcasts by various stations are available on the club's website at www.raotc.org.au. The broadcast can also be streamed or downloaded as an MP3 audio file from the RAOTC website for up to 6 months from the month of the broadcast. That website address again is www.raotc.org.au. Callbacks will follow most of the broadcast transmissions so that members and other listeners can give reports and make comments or suggestions. If you listen to this broadcast, please take a few minutes to participate in either a check-in or a callback. The order of each callback will be announced by the station operator. This is VK3OTN, an associated relay stations for the Radio Amateurs Oldtimers Club of Australia, with the August 2022 broadcast of news and information for members and friends of the club. This broadcast has been compiled by me, Bill Roper, VK3BR, and I am presenting the news today. In addition to club news, today's broadcast will include a current news item presented by Clive VK6CSW, as well as a couple of historical items. But first of all, old-timers of the club and listeners will recall that I was involved with the compilation, presenting and dissemination of the monthly RAOTC news broadcast for 15 years from 2001, and had been retired from these tasks for the past 6 years, apart from helping out from time to time with the 20-metre and 40-metre relays from Melbourne. Unfortunately, due to ill health, our regular broadcast compilers and presenters of recent years, Bruce VK3UV and Ian VK3JS, have had to retire from the broadcast, and we are having trouble finding suitable replacements. Andrew VK3CAH has stepped forward and is helping out, but we are in desperate need of some more assistance. Fortunately, with the advent of electronic communications, we are no longer dependent upon local Melburnians to assist. Can you help? Think about it. And if you think you can help with any aspect of compiling and presenting the content of these monthly broadcasts, please contact me, Bill Roper, VK3BR. My contact details are available on the RAOTC website and also in any recent issue of OTN Journal. Now, first of all, club news. RAOTC AGM 2022. Attendance at RAOTC AGMs has, for decades, until COVID, only been convenient for Melburnians to attend. Now, thanks to COVID, we have discovered that AGMs conducted via Zoom are not only practical, but very effective. One of the real pluses of Zoom AGMs is that RAOTC members from all over Australia can actively participate. Please note, the RAOTC AGM 2022 will take place from 2 p.m. Eastern Australian Standard Time on Thursday, the 15th of September. Full details on how you can register and participate in the AGM 2022 will be published in the September 2022 edition of OTN Journal. Please make a note in your diary now for Thursday, the 15th of September. RAOTC Management Committee. It is generally considered that the optimum term for people to serve on the committee of a leisure activity group is 3 years. However, the majority of the remaining 7 RAOTC committee members have served on the committee for over 10 years, some of us closer to 20 years. Fortunately, times have changed, and now, because of Zoom, committee members no longer need to be located in Melbourne, and can in fact be located anywhere in Australia. Currently, our only committee member not situated in Melbourne is Peter, VK8ZZ, who lives in Darwin. It would be great if we could get some more interstate club members to nominate for membership of the RAOTC Management Committee. Would you like to be involved? Do you feel that you could contribute? If so, please consider nominating for the RAOTC Committee at the AGM 2022. A nomination form to become a committee member will be available on page 60 of the forthcoming September 2022 edition of OTN Journal. The committee would very much like to be able to consist of representatives from all over Australia. Melbourne Luncheons. For several decades, the twice-yearly RAOTC Melbourne Luncheons were held at the Bentley Club. Unfortunately, that venue no longer exists. It turned out to be quite a difficult task to find a suitable replacement which satisfied all of the RAOTC's requirements. However, President David, VK3ADM, and Vice President John, VK3XM, have found a new venue, the Caulfield RSL, which seems to satisfy all of our requirements. It is very close to train and tram transport, and also to Nepean Highway. Full details for the September Melbourne Luncheon will be published in the September 2022 edition of OTN Journal. New RAOTC member. I'm very pleased to announce that Keith Winkler, VK7KW, became an associate member of the RAOTC on the 2nd of July this year. Welcome to the club, Keith. I trust you enjoy a long and enjoyable membership of the club, and please feel free to join in any of the callbacks after this broadcast. Silent Keys. It is with regret that I advise of the following members who are now silent keys. Noel Saunders, VK6NS, RAOTC member number 1493, became a silent key in August 2021. Keith Dixon, VK4IW, RAOTC member number 1158, also became a silent key in 2021. And Doug Raper, VK3VBA, RAOTC member number 1812, became a silent key on the 27th of June 2022. Let us pause for a few moments in memory of our departed colleagues. This is VK3OTN, and associated relay stations for the Radio Amateurs Old-Timers Club of Australia, with the August 2022 broadcast of news and information for members and friends of the club. I now hand over to Clive, VK6CSW, with a current and topical news item entitled The Sun and Sunspots.
The following article was published in Space Weather News, dated the 5th of July 2022, and is entitled The Sun and Sunspots. The Sun, a typical star, has a diameter of approximately 865,000 miles, nearly 10 times larger than the diameter of Jupiter, and is composed primarily of hydrogen. The Sun's core is an astonishing 29 million degrees Fahrenheit, while the pressure is about 100 billion times the atmospheric pressure here on Earth. Under these conditions, hydrogen atoms come so close together that they fuse. Right now, about half the amount of hydrogen in the core of the Sun has been fused into helium. This took roughly 4.5 billion years to accomplish. At some point in the future, When the hydrogen is exhausted, the Sun's temperature at the surface will begin to cool, and the outer layers will expand outward to near the orbit of Mars. The Sun at this point will be a red giant, and 10,000 times brighter than its present luminosity. After the red giant phase, the Sun will shrink to a white dwarf star about the size of the Earth and slowly cool for several billion more years. Sunspots. One interesting aspect of the Sun is its sunspots. Sunspots are areas where the magnetic field is about 2,500 times stronger than the Earth's, much higher than anywhere else on the Sun. Because of the strong magnetic field, the magnetic pressure increases while the surrounding atmospheric pressure decreases. This in turn lowers the temperature relative to its surroundings because the concentrated magnetic field inhibits the flow of hot, new gas from the Sun's interior to the surface. Sunspots tend to occur in pairs that have magnetic fields pointing in opposite directions. A typical spot consists of a dark region called the umbra, surrounded by a lighter region known as the penumbra. The sunspots appear relatively dark because the surrounding surface of the Sun, the photosphere, is about 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit, while the umbra is about 6,300 degrees Fahrenheit. Sunspots are quite large, as an average size is about the same size as the Earth. Sunspots, solar flares, coronal mass ejections, and their influence on Earth. Coronal mass ejections and solar flares are extremely large explosions on the photosphere. In just a few minutes, the flares heat to several million degrees Fahrenheit and release as much energy as 1 billion megatons of TNT. They occur near sunspots, usually at the dividing line between areas of oppositely directed magnetic fields. Hot matter called plasma interacts with the magnetic field, sending a burst of plasma up and away from the Sun in the form of a flare. Solar flares emit X-rays and magnetic fields which bombard the Earth as geomagnetic storms. If sunspots are active, more solar flares will result, creating an increase in geomagnetic storm activity for Earth. Therefore, during sunspot maximums, the Earth will see an increase in the northern and southern lights and a possible disruption in radio transmissions and to power grids. The storm can even change polarity in satellites, which can damage sophisticated electronics. Therefore, scientists will oftentimes preposition satellites to a different orientation to protect them from the increased solar radiation when a strong solar flare or coronal mass ejection has occurred. The solar cycle. Sunspots increase and decrease through an average cycle of 11 years. Dating back to 1749, we have experienced 23 full solar cycles where the number of sunspots has gone from a minimum to a maximum and back to the next minimum through approximately 11 years cycles. We are now well into the 24th cycle. Daily observations of sunspots began in 1749 at the Zurich, Switzerland Observatory. One interesting aspect of solar cycles is that the Sun went through a period of near-zero sunspot activity from about 1645 to 1715. This period of sunspot minima is called the Maunder minimum. The Little Ice Age occurred over parts of Earth during the Maunder minimum. So how much does the solar output affect the Earth's climate? There is debate within the scientific community how much solar activity can or does affect the Earth's climate. There is research which shows evidence that Earth's climate is sensitive to very weak changes in the Sun's energy output over time frames of tens and hundreds of years. Times of maximum sunspot activity are associated with a very slight increase in the energy output from the Sun. Ultraviolet radiation increases dramatically during high sunspot activity, which can have a large effect on the Earth's atmosphere. The converse is true during minimum sunspot activity. But trying to filter the influence of the Sun's energy output and its effect on our climate with the noise created by the complex interaction between our atmosphere, land and oceans can be difficult. For example, there is research which shows that the Maunder minimum not only occurred during a time with a decided lack of sunspot activity, but also coincided with a multi-decade episode of large volcanic eruptions. Large volcanic eruptions are known to hinder incoming solar radiation. Finally, there is also evidence that some of the major ice ages Earth has experienced were caused by Earth being deviated from its average 23.5 degree tilt on its axis. Indeed, Earth has tilted anywhere from 22 degrees to 24.5 degrees on its axis. But overall, when examining Earth on a global scale and over long periods of time, it is certain that the solar energy output does have an effect on the Earth's climate. However, there will always be a question to the degree of effect due to terrestrial and oceanic interactions on Earth.
Thank you, Clive, VK6CSW. This is VK3OTN and associated relay stations for the Radio Amateurs Old-Timers Club of Australia with the August 2022 broadcast of news and information for members and friends of the club. And now for some history. Wireless news 111 years ago. These days we tend to take radio, or wireless as it used to be known, very much for granted. However, as radio old-timers who are interested in honouring the history and heritage of our hobby, it is often fascinating to look back and appreciate what made headlines about radio, or wireless, many years ago. The Marconi Company published the first issue of the journal, the Marconigraph, in April 1911. It was the first journal written especially for wireless communication and circulated largely amongst engineers and operators. However, in 1913, the name was changed to The Wireless World, and in April 1913 the first issue was seen in newsstands. Now here are some interesting news items exactly as they appeared in the Marconigraph magazine in June 1911, just over 111 years ago. Wireless telegraphy at the Coronation Exhibition 1911. No doubt many people are mystified by the technicalities involved in the working of wireless apparatus. Although most of us, if not all, have read about the mysterious way in which messages are flashed through space by the means of wireless telegraphy, the actual working of the apparatus has been witnessed by but a limited few, and for this reason Marconi's Wireless Telegraph Company have had two of their wireless installations placed in the science section of the exhibition, one representing a ship at sea and the other a coast station. Two operators are in attendance daily at both these stations and demonstrate periodically how wireless messages are transmitted and received from ship to shore or vice versa. The public will also have an opportunity of sending Marconigrams either to ships at sea or to their friends abroad, as the stations act as a bureau for the acceptance of wireless messages. Another news item from the Marconigraph from 1911, entitled Tracked by Wireless. As in the Dr. Crippen case, when wireless telegraphs played such a prominent part in tracking criminals on the high seas, a somewhat similar case recently came to light, although in this instance public excitement was not so great. It appears that Monsieur de Bardi d'Arrest, a well-known Parisian, eloped with a governess, but their plans were frustrated when the steamer arrived at Quebec. A Marconigram was dispatched from Paris to the SS Lake Manitoba, on which the eloping couple had sailed, and consequently they were detained on arrival at Quebec. Monsieur Darrast, who admitted his identity at once, put an end to a mystery which had been occupying the attention of the Paris police for some considerable time. In connection with the use of wireless telegraphy in this case, it is a somewhat remarkable coincidence that the pilot Gourdreau, who piloted the steamer SS Montrose from Father Point with Dr. Crippen on board, also brought in the SS Lake Manitoba. Another news item from April 1911. Wireless telegraphy in the House of Commons. In his annual statement in the House of Commons, Mr. Herbert Samuel, Postmaster General, made some complimentary remarks concerning wireless telegraphy. He stated that the number of British ships fitted with wireless telegraphy had more than doubled, the number now being 290, and the number of wireless telegrams dispatched during the last 12 months had increased by 60%. Wireless for airships. It is understood that the Admiralty have appointed Lieutenant R.M. Groves to take control of the experiments which are to be carried out with a view to adapting wireless telegraphy to the new naval airships. It is expected that he will shortly enter upon his new duties at the Naval Torpedo School at Portsmouth, where special experiments are now being carried out. Wireless operators in the Navy. Wireless telegraphy promises to solve, to a great extent, the difficulty of finding employment for post office telegraph messengers who have passed the age limit. It is impossible for all of them to be appointed to the permanent staff of the post office, but owing to the rapidly increasing use of wireless telegraphy in the Navy, there is a large demand for wireless operators in the naval service, and the Admiralty has decided to give special facilities to postal employees in filling the vacancies. A chess match at sea. Another instance in which wireless telegraphy has enabled passengers of two liners on the high seas to participate in a game of chess was recorded when the chief officer of the Cunard liner, Altonia, won a game with the third officer of the Austrian SS Laura. During the whole of the play, neither vessel sighted the other. And that concludes the news quotes from 1911, a time when radio or wireless was new and exciting and at the leading edge of technology. Haven't we come a long way since then? This next news piece, entitled Radiation and Mobile Phone Towers, is an opinion piece written by Ron Cook VK3AFW in 2014. However, radiation still concerns many people today. And Ron wrote, "There is confusion in the mind of the public over what constitutes radiation and what is dangerous. Personally, I blame the educators, but that's another story. Fear arising out of ignorance. Not in my backyard syndrome, and venal considerations, I am sure, motivate the campaigns against mobile phone towers and other mass-carrying antennas, including amateur radio installations. The authorities have responded by sponsoring research and mandating rules for exposure to RF and other radiated energy sources. In Australia, the ACMA has imposed rules on radio amateurs. Radiation is a term that covers any emitted energy that travels out from a source and propagates according to well-known laws. This includes radio waves of all wavelengths, as long as thousands of meters and as short as 1 millimeter. It also includes even shorter wavelengths that intrinsically have the potential to cause ionization, such as X-rays, nuclear decay, or fusion emissions and cosmic rays. It also includes the greatest cause of cancer arising from radiation, sunlight. I've yet to see protesters on the streets demanding that the sun be turned off or moved to another suburb. Campaigns against mobile phone towers have continued over several decades or more. Paradoxically, many of the protest supporters can be seen holding their mobile phone to their heads for long periods each day, apparently ignorant of the much higher field strength from the phone as compared to the tower. I have seen the results of RF surveys in Melbourne, and most of the RF soup comes from TV and FM radio stations, not from mobile phone towers. The effects of radiation, both ionising and non-ionising, have been researched for over a century, and no deleterious effects have been found from the non-ionising radiation until it is intense enough to raise the body temperature beyond the body's ability to regulate it, which requires more than 10 kilowatts per square metre at HF. RF is actually successfully used for therapy, and has long been used to cauterize surgical incisions. However, it's been argued that no studies had been conducted on long-term exposure, that is, continuous exposure for 10 or more years. The Mobile Telecommunications and Health Research Program was set up with the support of the United Kingdom government to investigate and report on a range of aspects of RF exposure. Their last report covers mobile phone towers, as well as other topics, and can be downloaded from the internet. A newspaper report on their work appeared in the Melbourne Herald Sun on Wednesday, 12th of February 2014, and I quote, "Mobile phones declared safe. Mobile phone radio waves are harmless to humans." That's the conclusion of a group of British researchers who have been investigating the issue since 2001. Publishing close to 60 peer-reviewed papers on the way. In its final report, published back in 2014, the Mobile Telecommunications and Health Research Program said it found no evidence that exposure to base station emissions during pregnancy affects the risk of developing cancer in early childhood, nor was there any link to leukemia. Laboratory testing also showed that radio waves had no effect on biological tissue on a range of frequencies. "We can now be much more confident about the safety of modern telecommunication systems," said Program Chairman David Coggan, and that's the end of that quote. Now, while this is a solid, scientifically based report, it won't silence most of the protesters, was Ron's opinion back in 2014, because their motivations are too ingrained or have too much to do with money to be swayed by any report. It is, however, something that should stand up in any tribunal or court, and it is worth noting by any radio amateur. And thanks for that news item, Ron Cook, VK3AFW. In keeping with a long tradition, we conclude this broadcast with a humorous short story. The retirement card. Finally, at an age when he had to retire from his own company, a boss decided to mark the occasion with a farewell party. He wanted all of his staff to express their appreciation for him on a card, which was duly sent round to each department for signature. But when the card was returned, he was disappointed to read stock phrases like, "The place won't be the same without you," and "wishing you a happy retirement." So he said to one of his longest-serving employees, "John, you've been with me for 20 years. I want your comment on my card to be from the heart, to express how you really feel about my retirement after working with me for so long." Slowly but firmly, John wrote on the card, "The best news in 20 years." And that concludes the RAOTC News and Information session for August 2022. Many thanks to those who have relayed the broadcast this month. Your invaluable help is much appreciated. A reminder that the next RAOTC News and Information broadcast, compiled and presented by Andrew, VK3CAH, will take place on Monday the 5th of September 2022 on the same frequencies and at the same times as today. Don't forget, if you missed all or part of this broadcast, you can download the MP3 audio file from our website at www.raotc.org.au. Callbacks will follow most of the broadcast transmissions today so that members and other listeners can give reports and make comments or suggestions. So if you have listened to the broadcast, please take a few extra minutes to participate in either a check-in or a callback. The details of each callback will be announced by the relay station operator. This is VK30TN signing clear from today's news and information session. 73 from Bill Roper, VK3BR, on behalf of the RAOTC Management Committee.